So I'm now going to talk about avoiding arguments in relationships. So, first of all, in relationships, disagreements are natural and inevitable, but they can often lead to arguments which have the potential to be destructive, and they don't have to lead to these explosive arguments. And interestingly, arguments usually arise not due to the content of actually what's being said, but instead to the way in which the man or the woman is being approached. So the underlying attitude of the partner is the primary cause of the argument. And in a nutshell, when either a guy or a girl talks to their partner in a manner which is unloving, this is what causes the arguments. And it's basically when a primary love need is not met. And what usually happens is one of four defences comes up during the arguments. And the author calls these the 4 Fs. So fight. This is the first F. And basically, it's a common tactic used to protect yourself from being hurt when in an argument. And this involves going on the offensive, insulting your partner, complaining about them, and basically intimidating them into giving you what you want. And maybe there might be a short-term gain as a result of this, but in the long term, it will never move the relationship forwards. The second defense that comes up is the flight response. And this can result in guys or girls walking on eggshells in a relationship, never wanting to say something which is potentially disagreeable and might lead to an argument. So people, they compromise themselves. And this does not help in the relationship because they become numb. They stop feeling the loving feelings because they cut themselves off from all feelings. And often as well, when people walk on eggshells, they actually try to punish their partner in other ways in the relationship by withholding love. This is quite a common pattern. A third defense which comes up during arguments is called fake. And this is quite a common one that women do, which is where they put on a brave face, smile, and pretend everything is fine when clearly everything is not fine. This, again, never helps our relationship in the long run. And the third tactic is to always fold and give in to your partner whenever you get into an argument. And when you do this, you feel like you lose yourself, you lose your authenticity, and you compromise. And again, this leads to resentment and causes the relationship to fizzle out over time. So the secret to avoiding arguments is to communicate in a manner which is loving and respectful. And when this is the case, it's possible to have adult discussions where you're talking about differences, disagreements, and you're negotiating in a way in which you're always respecting your partner, and it never leads to an explosive and potentially destructive argument. The biggest mistake that guys make is focusing on being correct when his partner challenges him. And in doing so, forgetting to speak in a manner which is respectful and reassuring. This approach is sure to get a woman's defences up and lead to an argument. And on the flip side, a big mistake that women make is talking in a tone which is mistrusting and disapproving. And when they do this, guys automatically resist whatever the content is that they're saying because they don't like the approach. If you want to learn more about the causes of arguments and really have an understanding of exactly the most common ways in which they're started, and look at lots of scenarios in which potential arguments were successfully avoided, I would highly recommend checking out the full chapter in this particular book, as it's very, very insightful. A common complaint from women in relationships is that men start off loving but become increasingly passive. A frequent complaint from men is that women start off appreciative and loving and then suddenly become resentful and demanding. And the major reason for this is not realizing that men and women, they keep score differently. For women, any gift of love, no matter how big or small, has equal value and scores 1 point. And guys often fail to understand this, and they commonly fall into a trap where they forget to do the little things like taking her out to dinner, giving her a compliment on how she looks, and instead they focus all their energy and their efforts on doing one or two big things like buying her a car or working extra hours to earn more money. And they feel that this one big gesture is worth many little gestures, but this is not how women keep score. And what this means is that she feels that she's giving absolutely loads in the relationship and getting very little back. It reminds me of that song, I don't know what the song's called, where the woman says, does he wash up? No, he never washes up. Does he clean up? No, he never cleans up. Reminds me a bit of that, actually. And what happens, what should happen in this situation? So if a woman feels like she's given a lot more than the guy, and she's building up resentment towards her partner, it's best for her to firstly take responsibility for giving too much, then to take a back step and rest and give space for her partner to start to show his support and love. And when he does, to be appreciative and encouraging so that he gives more and more and more until the resentment passes and suddenly the relationship can get back to being healthy and productive. So for guys, the secret to scoring points with girls is to focus on the little things like buying flowers, complimenting her on her cooking, planning a weekend break, simple things like this. And for women, it's important to focus on expressing loving attitudes and feelings towards her partner, because when a guy feels like his efforts are being appreciated and he's not being taken for granted, he then can give more and more and more. And it's also important for men to realise that big gifts don't count the same way as many small gifts. And on the flip side, for women to understand that guys have this tendency to focus on one big gift as opposed to doing lots of little gestures of love. I'm now going to share a technique that the author Dr. John Gray presents for how to process difficult feelings towards your partner in relationships. And actually, what I like about this technique personally is that it doesn't just stop at relationships with your partner. You can really apply it in any situation where you want to process difficult feelings which have surfaced. And the technique, he calls it a love letter. And this is basically how it works. So a particular situation has triggered a response in you, and you really have some difficult feelings that you want to make sense of and you want to process. And writing about your feelings is actually a great way to get them off your chest. And this technique takes about 20 minutes, and there's basically 5 sections to complete, and you want to keep each of these sections roughly the same length, and you want to notice different feelings coming up and honestly write about them. So you start off with anger. So you might say, dear such and such a person, at the start of the letter, and then in the anger section you write, I am angry that ... So you fill in the reasons why you're angry. You might say, I feel annoyed because you did this particular action. Whatever it is you write about the feelings of anger that you have because of this particular situation. Then you move on from anger to sadness. So you might start with, I am sad that ... or I feel hurt that ... And then you say the reasons why you feel this way. After you've explored anger and sadness, you then want to move on to fear. So you might start saying, I feel scared because of... then name whatever the reasons are why you feel scared. You might say, I need support in this area because I'm afraid of this. You really get your fear out there in the letter. And then after fear, you move on to regret. So you might say, I feel embarrassed that ... Or you might say, I didn't want things to go this particular way. So you put all your regrets out there on the paper. Then be patient and make sure you're able to feel the emotion of love in your body, and then write from this perspective. So you might say, I forgive you because I know you're a good person and you really find the loving side of yourself and bring it out there. You might say, I love the fact that this happened. I thank you and I'm grateful for this particular thing. So you get your loving feelings out there. Then once you've done this, and finally you write PS, and then you write the ideal response you would like to hear from the person that you're addressing the letter to. For example, your partner. And then once you've done this, you've really this alone, this writing out these different emotions and then writing out the ideal response you want to hear. This helps you to heal from these difficult emotions. If you're brave enough, you can take it a step further and actually share the letter with your partner so they can understand why you feel the way you feel about this particular situation. So this is a technique that Dr. John Gray shares for processing difficult emotions. So yeah, I hope that you can try this out and receive some value. So I'm now going to summarize the final chapter of this classic text, which is titled Keeping the Magic of Love Alive. So when you fall in love, everything seems rosy to begin with. Everything is going swimmingly well, but suddenly shifts occur. For example, you can go from feeling good about yourself and your life to suddenly feeling unworthy, abandoned, or inadequate. Or potentially from being happy with your partner to mysteriously feeling insecure about the relationship or powerless to get what you want. The reason why this happens is simply because love brings up unresolved feelings. When faced with trusting and acceptance, when faced with trust and acceptance from our partner, we feel safe to be ourselves and we start to become more vulnerable. Painful emotions and traumas from the past suddenly surface and they become projected onto the present, i.e., our partner. So, for example, when our partner is criticizing us in a way in which you wouldn't expect to provoke much of a reaction, if you've been criticized harshly as a child and these particular emotions are surfacing, the criticism can really cause an overwhelming reaction. And Dr. John Gray introduces this particular principle, which he calls the 90-10 principle. And what this basically means is that when we're triggered, 90% of the upset that we feel is not due to what we think. It's actually memories from the past being brought to the surface. The shadow self, if you're into Jungian psychology. So it has nothing to do with the present experience, which is only responsible for roughly 10% of the upset that you're feeling. And one rule in this situation is never to tell your partner that they're overreacting, and instead to be understanding and supportive, because the difference is the same as the difference between poking against some closed skin, i.e. Some mild criticism when someone's feeling perfectly secure, to poking at an open wound, which would be like criticizing someone when they're processing these painful emotions. So a weird paradox can also occur in relationships. Because you feel so safe with your partner, your deepest fears begin to surface. But sometimes, if it's a really big fear, you can still feel too scared to honestly share these feelings with your partner, and even with yourself. It can be subconscious, and the feeling becomes blocked, and you can notice yourself feeling depressed, anxious, bored, exhausted for no apparent reason. And this is basically because you don't want to process the painful emotions that have surfaced. And in these particular situations, there's huge benefit that you can obtain from sharing with someone who you can trust, someone who's going to support you, but someone who you don't know intimately. For example, a counselor or an anxiety coach such as myself. So I'm now going to talk about what John Gray calls the 4 seasons of love. Seasons of love. Let's underline this. So, the first season is springtime. And this is akin to when you just fall in love with someone. It feels like it's going to last forever. It's perfect. It's going amazingly well. And you don't see any faults in your partner. Okay? So that's the spring of love. When the spring passes, it moves on to the summer. And this is where frustrations and disappointments begin to arise, because you realize that your partner isn't perfect. They're not always capable of giving you the love that you need and deserve. And likewise, you're not always capable of giving them the love that they need and deserve. And you're also not always happy. And then it moves on to the autumn. And this is when a mature love of acceptance of imperfection begins to arise. So it's a realistic, mature sense of love between two people. Then the winter arrives, and this is a time of healing as past traumas come up, painful emotions from the past. They need to be healed, and when they're healed, the spring returns, and the love is as strong as ever, and the whole cycle continuously repeats. So this is essentially what John Gray talks about in the last chapter. And to add a tiny little extra point, so of course when a guy is processing these painful emotions, he's likely to withdraw into his cave. So this would happen during this time of healing, and a woman will experience these painful emotions when she's on the downswing of one of her waves. She's at the bottom of her well, and her self-esteem will crash, and she will go through a time where she feels insecure. And in both of these cases, supporting your partner and giving them space to process what they need to process will automatically lead to them healing, and then being back at the races in their life. Hey guys, I'm Phil Morrison. I really hope that you enjoyed this first book club and you got a lot of value from the content. I highly recommend that you hit like and subscribe so you can get notified when further videos are released. I have plenty of plans for more book clubs. And the next book which I'm going to review is Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. This is a book on handling and thriving under adverse conditions, and really about turning obstacles into opportunities to move forwards in your life. And what this guy does is he brings really interesting ideas from Stoicism philosophy, and he really tries to integrate them into our modern lives and talk about how we can apply these same tried and tested lived principles and really keep moving forwards despite what challenges we might be facing. And the plan that I personally have with this book review series is to be quite diverse in the spectrum of books that I'm going to review. All, of course, with a personal development edge, but I really want to cover a broad spectrum, so you can really get a lot of value and a feel for the kinds of content that you resonate with best. So stay tuned for this next book club, and if you're interested, so professionally, I'm coaching guys with anxiety and teaching them how to get dates in everyday life. And it's going very, very well. It's highly successful. The guys that I am coaching, they're having no problem going out there and getting dates after the one-on-one coaching. If this is something which personally interests you and you want to be able to go out there in public in the daytime, have great conversations with girls in an ethical way, find girls that you really connect with and set up dates from there, feel free to email me. I'll schedule a Zoom call and I'll give you your first session totally free. And the first session can either be in Birmingham, United Kingdom, which is where I'm based, or if you're willing to reimburse my travel costs, I can come to your city if that is something which you prefer. So the first session, totally free, no pressure at all. And if you enjoy the session and you want to basically subscribe to one of my paid programs, after the session you can email me saying that you enjoyed it and you're interested, and we can make this happen. So stay tuned for more content. Have a great rest of your day.